Well, Elon Musk is now the richest person on the planet.
More than half the satellites in space are owned and controlled by one man.
Well, he's a legitimate super genius. I mean, legitimate.
He says he's always voted for Democrats, but this year it will be different. He'll vote Republican.
There is a reason the U.S. government is so reliant on him.
Elon Musk is a scam artist, and he's done nothing.
Anything he does is fascinating to people.
Welcome to Elon Inc., Bloomberg's weekly podcast about Elon Musk. I'm Max Chafkin, and we are recording this at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on a Saturday here on the East Coast because we got breaking news. The New York Times reported that Musk and Doge have successfully gotten inside the Treasury Department's payment system. These are the computers that control the disbursement of much of the federal government's money. This is something a top Treasury official was reportedly trying to stop just before he exited the administration. And to talk through this and the rest of the Musk breaking news, I'm joined by Sarah Frier, Bloomberg's big tech boss. Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
And we've got Dana Hull, Elon Musk reporter. Hey, Dana.
Hey.
And Kurt Wagner, Bloomberg's social media reporter, and also the guy who wrote the book on Twitter. Oh, that was terrible, Kurt. I'm sorry.
That's a great shout out. I'll take it. Hey, Max. Happy Saturday.
How's it going? So, guys, let's just start by setting the table. Dana, you want to try to take us through what happened here?
I mean, it's a really fast-moving story, but basically it sounds like the Treasury Secretary has given Elon Musk and his Doge counterparts access to the Treasury payment system. And Senator Ron Wyden wrote a letter about this that was published late last night, and it sounds like it's just an unprecedented amount of access that Musk and his comrades have to the way that the federal government actually pays its bills and disperses payments.
And Sarah, this is coming in amid a kind of week of chaos, right?
It's very hard to pay attention to what's happening given everything else that surrounds it. We've got the tariffs, we've got the plane crash. There's so many critical things that are taking up the headlines right now. But this is coming in the midst of a lot of uncertainty, a lot of silence on the behalf of these agencies as their workers get these emails telling them, you can take a government buyout and lose your job, as data is coming down from websites like the CDC and the census, as a lot of agencies and others who do business with the government are being told to cut all their DEI spending and resources in order to receive money from the government.
And it goes beyond that because federal workers, I mean, if you're talking to federal workers right now, a lot of them are just confused. You have these kind of weird offers and the suggestion that maybe they'll be resigned or laid off. There's tons of fear in the federal workforce. You also have these kind of reports of random Musk associates, some of whom work for the federal government, some of whom don't work for the federal government, barging in to various parts of the bureaucracy. If you're on Reddit right now, the Reddit forum where government workers are, it's like Thunderdome. It's just one post after another of people who are confused, scared, outraged, or just kind of befuddled. Kurt, I mean, you wrote a book about Elon's kind of chaotic takeover of Twitter, now X. I feel like we've seen this movie before. I mean, these moves really echo kind of what he did after taking over Twitter.
Yeah, it's honestly a little bit spooky, the similarities between these two, right? I mean, you could see just in the headlines alone, right? You see Elon sleeping at the office to try and get things done, working on the weekends, right? Trying to power through everything. You see him eliminating people from essentially their access to be able to do their jobs without any warning, right? Suddenly they just show up and they're no longer able to get into the systems that they use for their jobs. We all saw that email that came this past week, the fork in the road, right? This idea
same
that
subject line he used when he laid everybody off at Twitter.
Literally the same subject line, exactly. And at Twitter, it was very much hey, you either opt in to my version of Twitter, my hardcore version of what this is going to be, or there's the door and you can let yourself out. And so we're seeing this playbook, be used again. And I think what's shocking to me is that it didn't go smoothly at all at Twitter, right? It's not as if like Elon got to the end of his Twitter takeover 2 months in and was like, wow, that went great, right? He even himself was like, yeah, that was pretty bumpy. Like things are tough. I scared off a bunch of advertisers, maybe didn't handle everything the best way that it could have been handled. And yet here we are employing that same playbook at a national government scale. And this, Max, we all know this. Like if Twitter goes down for 20 minutes, we'll be fine. Like not ideal, but we will all be okay.
I mean,
if the
you'll
US
be fine.
government, I'll be fine. If the US government, payment system goes down or some type of defense system goes down because someone is rushing to do these things, obviously the impact could be, so much more significant and harmful.
I know you have to jump in a minute, but before you do, I just want to ask you one other question, which was this sort of move to control the actual payouts. Is there a parallel with Twitter? Did he actually try? Did he randomly cancel contracts? I actually can't remember how closely it tracks.
Yeah, I mean, he basically stopped paying most of Twitter's bills, and he's still in legal fights with a bunch of vendors over unpaid bills. And he also, Max, you will remember, didn't pay severance, right? So even though he's telling a lot of these employees of the U.S. government, hey, you can take this buyout and you'll, get paid through however many months, he told Twitter employees that too. And he's being sued by thousands of former Twitter employees right now for what they are arguing was insufficient severance. So, a lot of similarities to this idea that he's just going to simply not pay the things that he doesn't want to pay and force people to come and collect that money. Unclear if that's exactly the approach that he'll take here, but I wouldn't be shocked, right? He tends to welcome a legal fight because he has the resources and the time to drag these things out forever, whereas a lot of the people who he, ultimately stiffs with this stuff, they don't. And they may, not find it worth it to fight him in court. So I imagine this will be the beginning of, if I had to predict, a lot of legal issues with what's going on here over these first 10 days.
Kurt, thanks for being here. We'll let you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Dana and Sarah and I will try to break this down. Sarah, I was texting with a source, a former OMB employee who knows budget stuff pretty well, and sort of asking how does this rate from just normal political wrangling to something much more serious? Where do you think? How significant do you think this is?
I mean, this strikes at the very founding ethos of the United States of America, that we have this separation of powers and that the Congress controls the purse, right? This is Musk as an arm of the executive branch who's not even really he's an SGE. We can talk about that a little bit more later, but he's not really even a government employee, taking control of all of the money that the U.S. government pays out for salaries, for contracts, contracts, by the way, which Musk's companies receive payments from the U.S. government. So not only is there a huge conflict of interest, but it gets at some of the structural assumptions, or at least rules that we have over how the U.S. government works, and the functioning of these systems is critical to global confidence in the dollar, global confidence in the U.S.'s ability to pay its bills. It's one thing for Twitter to stiff a landlord. It's another thing for the United States of America to not be good for its money, right? That is a more serious issue. And to be clear, we haven't seen any evidence yet that Musk has not paid out anything that the U.S. is supposed to pay out, but this is power that he's not supposed to have, at least structurally, even if Trump has allowed him to have it. And so, yeah, I'm very alarmed by that.
we should say this payment system, it's enormous. The New York Times said $5 trillion in 2023. It's Social Security checks, it's Medicare, it's payments for everything. So it's not just the risk of default, but like the risk that somebody doesn't get their Social Security, that schools don't get funded, and so on. The person I was speaking to was saying essentially the question is, what does he do now? So like, does he just use this data to write some tweets, which would create some concerns potentially because there's private information here. You could imagine him getting stuff wrong. We've already seen him get stuff wrong. And then there's a sort of sliding scale to bad where the next step would be unilaterally defunding stuff, which, I mean, Musk has said that's what he wants to do. At times, Trump has said that's what he wants to do. And then the furthest along on the scale would be, can he actually make payments? You know, could he use this system to pay himself or somebody else? And I don't think we know the answer to that question. Dana, part of what makes this so concerning is that this is not just a normal White House official. This is not somebody who's been vetted, who's subject to financial disclosures, who's put all their assets in a trust. It's also somebody who's very, very erratic. I mean, like, the fact that this is Elon and not some other Trump figure is part of why I would say people are concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I think to take a step back, you know, we need to sort of recalibrate the way that we've been thinking about Elon Musk and Doge. I think originally a lot of the reporting was like, oh, it's this like advisory council that he's doing with Vivek Ramaswamy. And then it was like, oh, actually, Vivek is out. It's just Elon. And then people were still acting like it was just this sort of like advisory board. But no, now it's actually within the government. He's sleeping at the old executive office building. And what's happening now, and this is what, you know, we at Elon Inc. and elsewhere within Bloomberg would love our listeners' support with, is like he's got teams of people fanning out to every agency, you know, sort of setting up shop. And with Treasury, I think why it is so alarming is that because a career official basically, you know, tried to stop them from getting their hands on this data and was forced to resign or was forced out earlier this week. And so the Washington Post broke this story. David Librink, yeah. And so, you know, he was forced out and then basically announced his retirement on Friday. And then, so the sequence of events was the Washington Post broke the story. And then, you know, everyone was writing about Librink resigning. Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon wrote a letter to Bessent yesterday being like, why? Like, why did you give them access to this? And then we have the New York Times story that's out today. And so it's just, we have to like take a step back and constantly remind ourselves, I think, how unprecedented it is that the world's richest person, a government contractor who runs 6 companies and maybe an SGE, although I haven't seen like firm proof of that, is basically waltzing into every government agency with his associates, demanding access to data that typically has not been given to someone like him. And that has always been closely guarded within the agencies itself.
Let me just like put that on another layer of alarm here, right? Like, in some sense, the people who are frequenting this podcast are not alarmed that this is what Elon is doing. It's exactly what he did at Twitter. We joked on our internal Slack when he was given this Doge power, like that he would send a fork on the road email. He actually did that. And the difference here is that Elon paid $44 billion for Twitter. It's his company. I mean, he, you know, some billions borrowed from banks, but it was his to choose to do what he wanted to do with it. And as much as people felt like they have some ownership for Twitter because we've all used it and had it as part of our internet ecosystem over the last few years, it's a private company that Musk owns. This is the U.S. government. We own the U.S. government. Taxpayers own the U.S. government. So when Musk takes down data sets, as he's been doing, when he removes, you know, and I say Musk, but, you know, Doge, the Trump administration, extensions of Musk's ideas, when he does that, that's a different story. That's, you know, something that all taxpayers and citizens have to reckon with and could be directly affected by. So I don't want to lose sight of the fact that, like, although this is similar to what he did at Twitter, it's much more extreme, and much less authority on his part to even be a person doing this sort of thing with the U.S. government.
You know, it's interesting because everything you're saying is true, but at the same time, this is kind of what Trump and Musk promised. I mean, you know, there's been a lot of discussion about, like, well, it was Project 2025. Trump sort of ran away from Project 2025 and said it had nothing to do with him. But anyone who's paying close attention knew that there would be this effort to sort of take parts of the sort of nonpartisan civil service and put them under the executive branch. And I think what has changed, like what is different from what maybe some people anticipated, is that we thought it would be like a bunch of heritage guys doing this, and that Elon Musk would be like making a lot of noise. Or I would say that on this podcast, we were pretty bullish on Elon Musk and Trump staying together. But the sort of conventional wisdom was like, Elon's going to be off on this blue ribbon commission, and these kind of like extremely conservative elements of the Trump administration would be trying to do things like this, trying to control more closely payments, maybe even trying to defund the government. And what's different here is it's Elon Musk. And I think that creates just so much unpredictability and tons of risk. You know, Kurt was saying that how ineffective Musk was at Twitter in the early days. And again, like you're saying, Sarah, like the price of ineffective could be very serious. But of course, it does come with kind of this supercharged ego, energy, and just like not caring, like willing to cross lines, I think, that maybe other sort of more experienced in government types, people who might have to face a confirmation hearing, wouldn't be willing to cross those lines.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren just put out a statement. It's alarming that Elon Musk has access to government payment systems used to deliver Social Security and Medicare benefits. He also drove out the senior career official at Treasury responsible for preventing a potential default on the U.S. debt.
I'd also love to know to what extent Trump has given permission for Musk to do this, right? He may have said, like, do what you need to do. Or, like, you have my blessing to do what you've done at your companies to get them to the point they're at. I don't know if those in Trump's circle, I can't imagine that they knew the specifics of what it would take to get Musk's vision executed in the way he wants to execute it. I'd love to know more details on who knows what, who's approving what, who's actually in charge.
Yeah, so just as we start to wrap up, I want to just sort of try to spin this forward with you two. Dana, what are you going to be looking at in terms of trying to understand, like, just how unprecedented, just how much power does Musk have? How involved is Trump? Like, well, like what are you looking at in the coming days, and what should listeners be paying attention to?
I mean, I think we just need to be reckoning with the fact that Musk and Doge are going agency by agency by agency, right? It's like OMB, OPM, Treasury, the GSA, Education, USAID. Like, we need to like really sort of get a better grip on like who from Doge is now landing at each of these agencies. What data are they getting access to, and what are they actually doing, and how are federal workers resisting?
Yeah, and I'll just jump in with one final thought, and then Sarah, I'm going to go to you. But for me, I think the thing to keep in mind here is that unlike Twitter, you know, Sarah kind of laid out why this is potentially a lot more dangerous than if Elon Musk kind of messes with Twitter, it ruins my joke machine, but he could ruin the most powerful, you know, the government of the most powerful country of the world or something. I want to remind people, though, that, you know, there are going to be politics here, and a lot of this stuff is deeply, deeply unpopular. Cutting off each time he cuts something off, and if he makes a mistake, it's going to create a sense of crisis. And that sense of crisis, it may take a while for voters to pay attention, but there will be a political cost. And Sarah, to your point, I think that will start to raise questions about kind of where is Trump. Sarah, final thoughts for you, kind of what are you going to be looking at over the next couple of days?
I mean, of course, the legal reaction, the congressional reaction, like how does the government, once they realize what has happened, what has occurred, how does the government react? Do they try to stop this? Can they stop this? And if they try, like, does Musk back down? The other thing I just want to be clear about with Twitter, what Musk was saying he was doing things for and what he was doing things for were two different things. He said Twitter was all about free speech. That was his rallying cry. He made all these changes in the name of free speech. Of course, we've seen that free speech has not really been supported on Twitter. It's just been Elon's
uneven
version of it. It's been uneven. Here he's talking about efficiency. What I want to know, what really is Musk's endgame? What is his goal here? When we reflected on the Twitter acquisition and the chaos and what that led to, people were saying, oh, he's losing advertisers. Oh, he's losing respect. Oh, he's ruining his reputation. But it got him close to Trump and it helped him get so close to the U.S. presidency. So ultimately, we on this podcast decided that was a good acquisition. With the U.S. government, he's saying this is about efficiency. He's saying this is about using taxpayer money more wisely, getting rid of the bureaucracy. What is he actually doing? And what is the goal long term? What is the bigger picture?
Yeah.
So I think that's really what I'm going to be what I'm going to be looking for, trying to direct reporters to find out about.
Absolutely, yeah. It all comes down to his companies, right? There's all these ways that he can profit from this, and we're going to be paying attention both to what's happening in the White House and in the executive office building, as well as what's happening in the rest of Musk's empire. Dana, Sarah, thanks for joining me. Thanks for making this special podcast on a Saturday night. We'll see you both soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
This episode was produced by Magnus Hendrickson. Rehan Armansi was our senior editor. The Elon Inc. theme is written and performed by Taka Yasuzawa and Alex Seguiera. Brendan Francis Newnham is our executive producer, and Sage Bauman is the head of Bloomberg Podcasts. A big thanks to Joel Weber and Brad Stone. I'm Max Chafkin. If you have a minute, rate and review our show. It'll help other listeners find us, and we will see you on Tuesday.